Hello everyone, and this is the second part of the tutorial on how to create a tornado in Blender. In the previous part we covered the debris, or the particle systems for the debris at least. So you can see what we have here, all the different particle systems flowing nicely together, because that all looks nice, I guess. You can see we have 4 different systems, including one that has the objects, planes, to make it look much more like actual debris. And yeah, so with that, I guess we'll move on to the materials for the particle systems first, so that we can get that to look right, and hopefully the final cloud too if I have time. So let's escape out of that, and let's begin with these materials one by one. We'll start with the main debris. Alright, for the main debris, let me position my camera here real quick. Just go into the view wherever you want your camera to be positioned and press Ctrl-Alt-0, and that'll position your camera there. Let me move it back, rotate it up a little bit. Just trying to include all of it. I want to be able to fit the funnel cloud in here too whenever I actually put it in. It'll probably work. Maybe tilt it down a little more. Something like that. Okay, that's good. Alright, now I have to select that again. No. There we go. Alright, so by default it has a halo material that hasn't really been edited at all. It just says halo, so if we were to render it now, let me render it now actually. The render quality is probably going to look pretty terrible, judging by the video compressor I'm using, which I can see. Now, let me actually jump forward a frame or so. A couple frames, so you can actually see what I mean. I'll wait for that to pile up a little more. There's actually a bug in the particle systems that I'm trying to avoid. I guess I'll explain more about it if it actually happens. And I'm going to stop it right there and render it. So, as you can see, there are these that's just this big white mass that looks really horrible. That's obviously not what we're going for. Let me just edit the background a little bit. And in case you're wondering, we don't need any lighting for this particular scene. Because it'll all be halo materials and volumetric materials, which, in this particular case, it'll work fine without lighting. Whatever scene you're using, though, you may need it. I don't know. So, let's get started with that material, and just add a new material. Name it main debris. And we're going to make it a halo type, of course. And for this material, we're going to put the alpha at 0.1. You can see it lost a lot of its opacity, because it's obviously a lot more see-through right now, which is what we're looking for. And we're going to put the size 0.05. It's going to be a lot smaller than what we had by default. We're going to make the color very, very, very dark brown, almost black color, something like that, and just barely brown, like kind of a brown gray, just something like that. And make sure I didn't accidentally go down to black all the way. Okay. And that's all we need for that material. I guess I could render it right now, see how it looks, but since there are all those other particle systems there, you're not really going to notice anything. So we'll work on the other ones, and by the time we're finished with all those other ones, then it should look fine. The next one we'd want to work on is the tiny debris. Tiny debris particle system. So let's add a new material, and name it tiny debris. And we'll make that a halo material as well. We're going to give it an alpha of 1, I guess. Yeah. And we're going to make the color dark gray, brown, something like this. And we're going to put the size at 0.025, I believe. 0.02. We'll make it a little smaller. Keeping the hardness at 50, of course. And if you render that, you might be able to see a little bit of difference, but probably not a whole lot. No. So let's just move on to the next one then. And yes, finally the outer dust material, I guess you could call it. Add a new material, name it halo, not name it halo, make it a halo type. Name it outer dust. And what we want to do with this one is basically we want to have a faint material. So we want to make it more transparent, meaning less alpha, but we want it to be bigger so that it's more cloudy and less particle-y, if that makes any sense. So we'll start by lowering the alpha to 0.025. So that's really faint for an alpha value. And we're going to make the color about the same as we did for the tiny debris. I'm going to put it right about there, a little bit brown, just like that. Alright? And we're going to put the size at 0.65. So that's a pretty big size compared to what we've been giving the other ones. Again, make sure the hardness is set at 50. If we render this now, the veil has been revealed, as you can see. I evidently forgot to do something in the previous part. We have to go through all these particle systems. You notice how, if you go back to the render, you can see the plane is there. We don't want to see the plane. It's not part of the tornado, obviously. So we're going to come back here to each of these particle systems, and we have to uncheck the emitter option. This way it will not display the emitter. It honestly doesn't matter as much with these other dust particles and everything like that. The one that really matters is the object one, because since it's not a halo material, on the other particle systems, since they were halo materials, it made the plane a halo material too, so they just had 4 faint dots on the edges. But in this case, it's not a halo material, it's an object, so the plane just stayed the same as it was before, so we can clearly see it. So we have to make sure on this one that we uncheck emitter. And I'm just going to do it. It's not selecting it right. There we go. Just going to make sure I do it on all of these other ones. Uncheck it there too. Oops. And there. So now if we render it, it should look much better. I'm gonna move the camera a little closer. Yeah, since this is just focusing on the debris for now. Just, whoa. Hold down shift because this is being really finicky. Something like that. And render that. There you go. Now you can get a better view of the debris. You can see all the different material work we did. That main coloring in the center is the main debris, of course. The little really tiny dots are the tiny debris. The black, larger debris pieces are the objects, of course. And then, of course, there's the faint, hazy kind of material on the outside. And that's the outer dust material, as we named it. And, of course, this is animated. It might actually look better if we did a little bit of motion blur. I'm going to add that now. Let me drag that up a little bit. I meant to do that at the beginning. I'm going to put that... I'm just going to use a sampled motion blur, because that's what I did before. So we're going to use 3 samples, and I'm trying to remember what shutter setting I used before. Probably like 0.25 or something, I don't know. Let me render this and see how it looks. You can also do motion blur through the compositing, but I've had difficulty with that in the past. Probably because my debris pieces aren't moving fast enough. Yeah. So we'll just wait for this to take effect and see how it looks. Okay. That's hardly noticeable at all. Let me try one. When you're setting the samples, that's how many times. Basically, it's layering the image. So the shutter is the time taken in frames, like it says, between shutter open and closed. So basically, I don't know how to describe it, but alright, let's just say the higher the shutter value is, the more blurred the object will be. And the more samples you add, the higher quality the blur will be. If that makes sense. So now you can see there's motion blur. It doesn't really look quite as good still as it does animated. But of course this is an animation. You can render it out if you want. I'm going to wait to render it out until the end of the tutorial. And I'm already going on 11 minutes, I think, unless my clock is wrong. So I believe that'll be all for this part of the tutorial. And in the next part, we're going to add the funnel cloud, and maybe an additional particle system. Just as you know, this only extends up to here, but the funnel cloud will be all the way up to here, and want a little bit more haze going along the outside. Because that's just the way tornadoes look, is there's at least a little bit of debris going all the way up the funnel. So, with that, I guess I'll end this tutorial here now. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have any questions or comments, problems, anything like that, post them below in either the YouTube comments or my website comments, and I'll try to respond as soon as I can and help if you're having any issues. Because I hope I'm being clear enough in these video tutorials. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching this, and I hope you're having fun.